Let's jump straight in. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're uncovering exactly how digital and disruptive technologies are completely upending traditional business operations. Because let's face it, whether you're running a hyper-scared global retail empire or a local cooperative bike shop, the way you match your output to customer demand is changing at lightning speed. Standing still? Yeah, that's just no longer an option.
To put this into perspective, consider this. Shein is aiming for a massive $58.5 billion in revenue by 2025, right? But they only produce 100 to 200 pieces of an item at launch. I mean, really think about that for a second. You have a multi-billion-dollar giant acting with the caution of a tiny independent boutique. They don't guess what consumers want. They literally let the data pull the trigger. And this on-demand lean production model allows them to consistently limit excess inventory to a level that is just vastly lower than traditional retailers. So, to really master this topic, we're going to cover 6 key areas today: the technological operations shift, automation and strategic competitiveness, AI in the supply chain, upgrading inventory management, evaluating strategic trade-offs, and finally, strategic success, global versus niche.
All right, Section 1, the technological operations shift. Let's get into it.
We need to start with a foundational look at disruptive technologies. And notice the heavy emphasis on disruption here. We aren't talking about just minor upgrades or a software patch. These are fundamental changes to the very rules of operations. If a business fails to adapt to these new digital tools, they face what we call strategic drift. That's essentially what happens when a company's strategy completely loses touch with the environment around it. You either adapt or you fall behind. It's that simple.
Ultimately, all this technology serves 3 core operational purposes. First up, refining inventory levels. We're talking about moving away from those massive just-in-case piles of stock and moving toward highly responsive systems that match supply exactly to demand. Second, streamlining the supply chain by boosting transparency and tracking logistics all the way from the origin to the consumer. And third, deploying automation to achieve flawless consistency, seriously ramping up speed, and stripping out wasted resources.
Moving right along to Section 2, automation and strategic competitiveness. So you might be wondering, how exactly does all this create a competitive advantage? Well, it follows a pretty strict logical flow. You invest in automation, which leads to less waste, right? That naturally drives your efficiency way up, which directly pulls your unit costs down. By utilizing continuous improvement techniques, businesses end up using fewer resources. They need less redundant labor, and they drastically reduce the number of items that have to be reworked. And this lower unit cost, that's the holy grail. It allows a business to either slash their prices to aggressively win market share, or they can maintain their prices and enjoy a significantly wider operating profit margin.
Okay, it is your turn. Please pause the explainer now and complete Task 1. Build a chain of reasoning detailing how the implementation of automated production processes leads to a measurable improvement in unit costs and long-term competitiveness. Make sure you connect every single dot, all the way from that initial capital expenditure right down to the final operating profit margin.
Let's dive into Section 3, AI in the supply chain. If we apply this theory to the real world, Shein is the perfect example. Their entire lean production model hinges on incredibly accurate computer modeling. Because they hold exceptionally low inventory levels, they completely bypass the massive bloated costs of warehousing unsold items, paying for extensive security, and dealing with stock depreciation. In a highly price-sensitive market like fast fashion, this extreme efficiency is exactly what protects their profit margins. But the absolute crucial point here is agility. AI allows them to react instantly to market fluctuations. They can even select suppliers based on hyper-precise metrics. For example, if Shein suddenly needs a new supplier, their AI models can instantly weigh a supplier in China offering a 9-day lead time and lower CO2 emissions against another supplier's specific capacity constraints. It cuts entire stages out of the production process, which means they can imitate trends and bring new styles to market way faster than anyone else. Which brings us to Section 4, upgrading inventory management. Now, in sharp contrast to a massive global corporation like Shein, let's look at Farmore Cycles. They operate on a much smaller community-focused scale. They have a totally different mission. They're all about building a fairer society through cooperative ownership. Yet, surprisingly, they face the exact same pressure to modernize. As an independent bike retailer in a market completely dominated by large national chains with vast economies of scale, Farmore has to fight back using smarter operations just to survive. And they are definitely feeling the squeeze, with their operating margins dropping from 3% down to 2%. But their operations manager calculates that a £50,000 investment in a new inventory system could actually reverse this trend. The math here is really fascinating. This system is projected to achieve a 20% average rate of return. When you consider their bank loan interest rate is only 8%, this tech investment isn't just some minor operational upgrade. It's actually a highly viable financial lifeline to protect their shrinking margins. Time for another quick break. Please pause the explainer now and complete task 2. Using the farmer's cycles data provided, justify how their proposed investment in a new inventory system supports operational efficiency while balancing their cooperative mission. Really think about how securing their financial future directly allows them to continue their social goals. All right, Section 5, Evaluating Strategic Trade-offs. So it's not all smooth sailing. Business leaders have to constantly weigh the high financial cost, the CapEx, and the technical failure risks of new tech against the absolute existential threat of strategic drift if rivals modernize faster. Look, if that £50,000 system at Farmore fails, or if Sheen's AI predicts a massive trend incorrectly, the financial damage is immediate and it is painful. But if they do nothing, their competitors will simply outprice and outmaneuver them until they just cease to exist. And we absolutely cannot forget the human element in all of this. Bringing in new AI or automation can cause massive anxiety for staff. However, adopting technology requires retraining. If it's managed correctly, giving workers control over new quality assurance tech actually satisfies their innate desire for responsibility and achievement. This aligns perfectly with Hertzberg's two-factor theory, potentially transforming what feels like a terrifying change into a massive boost in productivity and motivation. Finally, Section 6, Strategic Success, Global versus Niche. Let's bring our two case studies together for a final comparison. On one side, we have Sheen, an operation built entirely on massive data streams, rapid lead times, and sheer global volume. For them, AI literally is the business model. On the other side, you have Farmer Cycles, a community-focused cooperative just looking to protect its tight margins. For Farmore, tech is more of a defensive mechanism to ensure their survival against national chains, rather than the core product offering itself. Before we wrap up, please pause the explainer now and complete Task 3. Formulate a justified judgment on whether the adoption of AI-driven supply chain management is a more critical driver of success for a global retailer like Shein than for a niche specialist like Farmer Cycles. Make sure your evaluation really weighs the very different objectives of both of these businesses. And that brings our explainer to a close. Look, whether you are generating millions of fast fashion items globally or just tuning up bikes locally in Oxford, operations management is no longer just about warehouses and clipboards. It is about algorithms, massive amounts of data, and ruthless efficiency. The rules of business are being completely rewritten. So the only real question left is, as technology redefines the very nature of supply and demand, what exactly happens to the businesses that decide to stand still? Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.